Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer. Welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Esteban Ribičić joins us today. He is the founder, owner, and basically everything behind a wonderful GRC product called Eramba. Esteban, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Would love to hear your story. Of course, I'll preface it by saying that I have been a very happy consumer user of Eramba for many years now, and first got involved with the community product and then went to enterprise. Several of our clients use it, and I think it's just a great product. And I know some of your backstory as to how and why you developed it, but would like to hear from the beginning why you got into cyber all the way up to where you're at today.
I was born in 81. By mid-90s, I was in high school, and Linux and open source became a big thing.
Yes.
I wasn't very good at sports, and girls definitely didn't work also that for me. And a friend of mine was very geeky kind of guy, and he put me into this Slackware distribution, and he was a developer, and he was kind of a hacker. And that kind of made me believe that, wow, I can maybe do something good in life. It's not just sports and girls. And yeah, from there I finished high school in 98. I started working for an ISP. Everyone was very geek in that place. It was dial-up times. Yeah, there was no DSL or anything like that.
Right.
And I was doing Linux admin. I was much more technical thing. So it's basically, I don't know, because I was watching, administering mail servers and proxy servers, and for large infrastructures, and working with SAN systems and this old days kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of. I was involved with the hacking scene in the 90s. Back in those days, we would download the exploits. They would never compile, so you had to fix the code a little bit. We will run those and try to do things which, I mean, I was thinking, should I say this? But I think it's prescribed already, right?
There's no problem. There's no problem.
Yes. So we were, those in the days, it was online shops, and we were hacking those websites because it was very early days, right, of web applications. So yes, and then around 2000, I think, I don't remember when exactly, I kind of realized that I wasn't that good at very hardcore technical things. I remember a story. I was writing a patch for the Linux kernel. I think it was an IP tables module, for version 2 of the kernel. And in those days we had mailing lists, and I posted a few patches, and one of the guys replied. Yeah, in those days these guys were, sarcasm full.
Oh yes, they're brutal. I remember.
I mean, and you were exposed to everyone. There was no codes, politeness of any kind. And the guy basically said, "Look, stop putting things. No one. We're not adding any of these ever. So it's your code is shit. Just don't do it anymore."
Well,
and then I said,
"That's horrible. It's like you're trying to contribute." And
well, yes, but if people wants to help, but it doesn't mean that by doing something you're actually helping. I mean, I know that because I'm older nowadays. So yeah, we can contribute perhaps in different ways. So I then found that I needed to do something different. The career path back then was to be a pre-sales guy, I think it was called, or an architect or something like this. And then someone wanted me to do ISO 27001. This was 2005, just when the standard went out. I had no idea what this was. I didn't like the job, but I needed a job because of the financial circumstances of those days. And that's how I started with GRC. Yeah, so very technical background, and then I realized maybe I'm not so good, and then end up in the GRC world. So, then, sorry to interrupt you. Yes.
No. Well. Okay, go ahead. I was going to ask about the differences between spreadsheets and GRC, but I'm getting way ahead of stuff. But go ahead.
I started to manage GRC for. No, sorry. My job was to make the company I was working for ISO 27000 certified. I had no clue about what's a policy, a risk. If you come back, the technical background back in those days, it was not unusual for people not to understand what you were talking about. I think even to this day, to some extent. And I did. The company paid me trainings and courses, and I got the certification. And then I realized that the work of a CISO lacked some tools like I was used to when I was doing the technical kind of job. You have so many projects in many ways. And those tools were very expensive and very difficult to use back then. I mean, I'm referring to GRC tools. Right. And I got a bit frustrated, and I came from the open source world, even though I was hammered pretty often in the mailing list. By my good intentions, and this is how eramba became. Yeah, I wanted to make an open source project about GRC. This is 2006, 7 maybe.
Uh-huh.
Anymore, yeah, long time ago.
So I have to ask the question, if you've got a suggestion for your developers, do they come back and give you the same reaction like the mailing list did? It's like, no, let us do the developing now, or are you
I don't
still
code. I'm not allowed. I did the first versions of eramba
Uh-huh.
until 2012 probably, and right until that point I was not allowed to touch the code anymore. I don't touch the code for 10 years now, and you know what, I feel great. I mean coding today is much more difficult than it was back in the day. You know, today you have very specific languages and they're different and they do very different things, and there's much more interaction in between applications. Back in the day it was a monolithic application, so it's oh my god, I'm happy I'm not a developer, to be honest.
Well, in just a moment, I want to ask you what you think are like is the most, just from your view, because you got a little bit of a different view, because I know that your customer base really is across the board, but some of them are going to be the smaller and mid-sized businesses, and I know
Yes.
that you hear about some of their needs and their challenges. So in just a moment after I roll the ad, I'm going to ask you what you think is one of the most significant threats to small and mid-sized businesses. The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Okay, Esteban, from your perspective, what's one of the biggest threats to small and mid-sized businesses?
Oh man, I thought about this one. And I think it's ignorance. I know that people is expecting me to say phishing and I don't know, XSS and web applications and whatnot. Those are the easy answers.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
And my perspective after years is ignorance. And look, the community has 15,000 installations around the world. Yes, we get 3,000 downloads every year. We have 420 customers around the world. I'm talking from what I hear. We do 3-4 demos every week. I talk to people all the time, and what you hear, and no matter if it's a big or a small company, and this was a surprise for me later on, it's the same. It's the same complications, you know. And when I say ignorance, people take it in a bad way, because if you tell people, oh, you're an ignorant, it's like a hard thing to say, right? I personally think that it's important to be critic. I wouldn't be able to have eramba if I wouldn't have been critic with all the people these thousands of times telling me what is wrong, what is good, and so on. It was a big part of my career, I think, to understand how to take these things. When I say ignorance, look, I'm a dyslexic person, so it helps me a lot to give analogies, and I do also a lot of analogies. There's around 20,000 diseases that the human body is subject to. 26, I think, actually is the number. And of course, we don't really know about these 26,000 ones. And the reason we don't know is because we don't need to know, because statistically speaking, and the word important here is statistically speaking, 55% of the world, at least in Europe, dies from 2 or 3 diseases: cardiovascular, cancer, and respiratory diseases.
Right.
And then the point here is statistically. I mean, if you ask me what is the biggest threat in the cybersecurity for mid-sized businesses, well, I can tell you there's hundreds, if not thousands, of threats. The difference is that there's no statistic behind them. And that creates the entire problem. Because again, if you have to be constantly worried about 26,000 diseases, you wouldn't have a life. You will be consumed about protecting yourself from 26 different vectors. But because of statistics, you only have to really care about 5, 6, what your father had, your mom, dad, and whatnot. Yes. As a CEO, I don't call myself CEO, but as an owner of a business of 10 people business, and for 10 years, I know that it's very, very difficult to run a mid-sized business. It's very difficult.
Yes.
And if I onboard someone as a CISO in my company and that person will bring me 26,000 potential threats, I will be overwhelmed. There's no way no one can deal with that. And therefore, you need to understand the likelihood of these 26,000 to happen. And this is why people ask you, what is the most important? Now, we don't know what is the most important one, because threats, unlike human beings in companies, is circumstantial. For you, a web attack might mean nothing, but to me, that I receive a lot of traffic around the world, it might mean something.
Right.
So it's not just the 26 are there, they are circumstantial. And then the other thing is the 26,000 affect you, me, let's say, or you, hopefully not. But in a company, you don't have one person. You have systems and applications and peoples and locations and offices. So these 26,000 are multiplied by the number of people that could be affected. So the monster is huge. And we still like this likelihood. When people does risk analysis or things in terms of problems, since you don't have that likelihood, it becomes very, very difficult to understand the extent that you should be worried about this. And I think that's the big problem. We are not able in the industry, and this is no particular problem of a person, we're not able to tell things factually.
Yeah.
Yes, we can die from cancer, but we know exactly what is the probability of that happening. Now, a web application attack or a phishing attack or whatever you want to tell me, the likelihood is unknown. So how can I invest into that problem from a financial perspective when I don't know the likelihood? And that disrupts the whole industry. Yes, I think if you ask me, that's a big problem. If you cannot take decisions, you're screwed. Yeah.
I think you touched on something which I think is you're talking about ignorance, and then you were talking about that criticism is good, and I think that is a huge thing that all businesses, but particularly small and mid-sized businesses, that I've found that sometimes some businesses, they would prefer to have a virtual CISO, because that's what I do full time, a virtual CISO that tells them what they want to hear, whereas the virtual CISO and the CISO in like a big company should be challenging the company, should be pointing out, here are some issues, let's start talking about it there. And
Yes.
I would say that maybe that would help to get through the ignorance and
Yes, I can tell. I'm honest with people. I can be honest now, perhaps. Let me be honest. I don't want to. I'm older already, and the story happened. But I've taken jobs knowingly that the recipient side, so whoever was hiring me, didn't have the maturity, the resources, or anything to build a serious security program. Even though I said, okay, yeah, we can do it. So you see, I'm part of the problem as well. I cannot be a hypocrite in that sense. So we should stop saying, okay, you know what? I can't take your job because you're not offering, you don't have what you need to actually do what you want to do. It's like if a contractor comes to your house and you say, well, I want to have a swimming pool and I have $1,000. And the contractor should say, I'm sorry, but we can't do that. It doesn't exist. And so it is a big problem. But I understand people need jobs, right? They need to pay their mortgages and their bills the same way I do. So it's a big problematic. The likelihood thing on risk management is a killing factor. You solve that, the financials become clear. The minute the financials become clear, anyone can take decisions, a business decision.
Early on, when I first started the business, of course, we're a small business, just like you all are, different model, but a little bit less people, but close. My goal was that I would never take on anybody who was just looking for compliance, to tell me that, yes, I can build a swimming pool for $1,000.
Correct.
Because exactly what you just said, that's a huge problem out there of folks that are getting a false sense of security, no pun intended. So I agree with you, and I think that is a problem in the industry. And I would again emphasize to folks that they need to face up to the harsh reality of where they're really at, and ask themselves a question: do you really want to have a security program? Because that's the first thing that you got to ask before going any further.
Correct. It's about honesty and transparency. If you want lemonade, well, you need lemons. If all you have is oranges, well, you get something different. But it's my job as the professional in this industry to give you that advice, right? Because the one who is hiring me hasn't got a clue. This is why he's hiring me, right? Or she's hiring me. So yes, it is a problem. And I mean, if you think about it, GRC, and it's an incredibly new industry. 20 years ago, I mean, I don't remember anyone talking to me so widely as we have today about CISOs and the GRC and so on. So what do you expect? I mean, it's 20 years. I mean, we cannot compare ourselves with IT, who's been there like for 100 years, yes? So look, it is, and this is why I think in some ways I did eramba. Once a guy told me that we are trying to democratize. I don't know the word in English. I'm sorry.
Democratize, I think it is. Yeah.
Democratize. There you go. Thank you. Yes, because I mean, how can you expect people to do the job if first don't know how to do the job, or they're not very sure how to do it, and second they don't have the tools? Like if you want me to build the pool for you, and all I have is a shovel, and I don't have a mixer, and I don't have an excavator. Well, it's not going to work. It's going to be a frustrating job for everyone, for you and for me. And this is why we put so much emphasis in trying to give tools to people. Again, eramba has 15,000 installations. That means 15,000 companies around the world have a tool. I mean, might not perfect, but they have a tool at least to move away from spreadsheets and do GRC in a more professional way. We also do trainings. Every 2 months, we do free trainings. It's 5 days of my time, 2 hours every day, where I teach people not just how to use eramba, but I teach them GRC. We have 100 participants in average in every one of these trainings. So I believe that a long time ago, a person that taught me many things is that you need to give to expect to receive. If you give, it will come back to you. There's absolutely no question.
Exactly.
There's a lot of good people in the world, and that's what I try to do, And I'm lucky to make a living. And I'm lucky to make a living out of that.
You have to eat,
fortunate.
right?
Yeah, of course. Yes, well, which I do, given by my weight. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you touched on the training, because that was one of the things I was going to mention. It's that yes, the way that you do the training, because I've been through it before, and I've pointed people to it. It's not necessarily eramba training, but it's fundamental GRC concepts. It's I think that your platform does one of the best jobs that I've seen of explaining it first at a basic level, that and if I get this wrong, I apologize, but that the magic behind the one thing that people need to understand from the get-go with the GRC is the relationships, because that's how it all works. But what is it about eramba that differentiates eramba from some of the other GRC solutions out there?
I don't like talking about the competition, Greg, because I don't know the competition well. They are not open about what they do or how they work. If you don't go through POCs and these things, and I honestly don't know them, so I don't like talking about them. I can tell you what we try to do, and what we try to do is, first, we want to make it accessible to people. Eramba is free. The documentation is free. The trainings are free. Like if you don't want to learn about eramba or GRC, it's entirely up to you. It's nothing to do with us. The second thing is simplicity. The idea, I mean, maybe again because I'm older, but a GRC teams that we did a statistic on the average size of a GRC team, and it's 0.5 people in the best scenario every 100 employees.
Wow.
So and we ask our customers, and we know how many GRC people we have, know how employees, and we can do these ratios, and that varies on the size of the company, but it's 0.2 to 0.5. Now, I mean, these teams are very, very small. You can't expect miracles from such a small team, And so what they need is simplicity. And GRC, because you have vendors and they have to differentiate. When you have a product company, you need to differentiate from the other guys. So you put more features, make it more exciting and more exciting, but all that adds complexity. And what these people need is not complexity. It's all the opposite. It doesn't really matter if eramba will be free. If eramba will be free, but the software will be incredibly complicated to understand and to use, I mean, there's no use for such a small team. And then it's transparency. And I was a manager for 10 years running GRC, right, for a multinational company. And I was buying software all the time. And I hated this time and material thing that you never know how much it's going to cost, or that you want to see a product, you have to go through a POC with a sales guy who has no clue what he's talking about. No, I respect salespeople, don't get me wrong. But you have to, try to figure out, will this work or not? And the build is huge, right? So it's not that you can get it wrong because your head is in the line, right? So transparency is documentation. It's a forum. We have a forum. Everyone can say whatever they want. If someone says, look, eramba sucks because of this, and that, if it's true, it's true. And if it's not, it's not. It's visible for everyone. Simple pricing. When you buy something nowadays, I was checking for a Tesla the other day. I mean, you have so many checkboxes. It looks cheap, but even if you add with a checkbox, it's like Ryanair flights, here in Europe. It becomes super, you add the meal and I don't know what. Eramba is one price for everyone. I don't care if you're a multinational or it's a completely different model. That is simplicity, transparency. Those are key cornerstones. And helping the community. I am a true believer of helping the community. You can make a living very, very good out of helping the community.
Absolutely. If you have a heart of a servant, you're always going to be successful because
Oh,
A,
absolutely.
that's what you value is the service. And B, I loved it when you said it's like if you give, it will come back. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
if you're not valuing the chasing of the of the cash inflow. So
Yeah, strangely enough, the guy who told me that advice, if you give, you come back, it was actually a vice president of Merrill Lynch in New York, a banker. So if a banker tells you that if you give, it come back, you better believe it, yeah?
and Merrill Lynch is pretty successful. So
Yeah.
now Aramba recently you started to offer a SaaS platform, correct?
We didn't want to. I didn't, oh man,
I,
I delayed this for
I
years.
remember us talking about it a couple of years ago, and that
Yeah, no, you don't want to deal with people's stuff. You don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to look after your dog or your cat. I mean, if you ask me, I will do it, but I just don't want to do it because it's a responsibility, right? And we Gardner mentioned us twice in 2020, I think 2021. I don't remember the years. And in one of the years, one of the Gardner people tells me, Esteban, come on, put the SaaS. Everyone is doing SaaS. You only know without SaaS. And yeah, well, we have to do the switch, but I wanted to do it professionally. So we hired a company that is very close to us. They are doing this for a living. Basically, they build these kind of cloud implementations for companies that do SaaS services. We got our ISO certification, like what you said very well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust the certification. It's just a paper to some extent. Yes, it's like a driver's license. It doesn't mean that you're a good driver. Okay, you just got it. It doesn't mean exactly. So yeah, we wanted to do it well. So I think I'm very happy. We write very professionally. It's going. We have very good uptimes, and I'm very comfortable the way it runs. It's very automatic. It's programmatically done. Almost no hands-on. It's going well. Most of our customers now buy SaaS. They don't buy anymore on-prem. It just financially makes no sense to buy on-prem anymore. Or for most cases, not every case, yeah, but for most cases, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because it's really not that much more when all is said and done. And
No.
it does take away some of the
Updates,
challenges on other
installations.
folks. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, as a fellow small business owner and also as a fellow person who has been in cyber maybe just a little bit longer than you, but
Yeah, you don't look old.
I'm 56.
Oh man, you
So
look great.
the secret to that is I consumed a lot of alcohol when I was younger, so I'm convinced it preserved me.
That's why you have the metal. That's why you have the metal music at the beginning.
Well, I just chose that. I was going through some free stuff, and I'm like, no, that sounds pretty good. I like that.
I
Wakes
like it a
people
lot.
up. So
I like it a lot. Yes, it's a good
but
choice.
there's a lot of stress involved with being in cyber and being an entrepreneur and a business owner. What's one of the things you do to get away from all that, to decompress?
It's very difficult to be a business owner, and I'm not meant to be one. I say it many times. I struggle, and I don't think I should be one. But look, I'm in this bicycle. I can't get off. What I do, I mean, I could tell you, I like sailing, I like gardening, I love my family. But I think what I do is more and more I try to make problems simpler.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many problems. If I go in too much detail in each one of them, it consumes me. So I learn to stop and say, well, this problem is like this. Okay, let's simplify it as much as we can. Also has to do with my dyslexia. I can't process very complicated things. It takes me a long time, so I need to somehow. And I think yes, I learned to deal with problems in a slightly different way as I used to when perhaps 10 years ago. Yes, and of course, other than that, I love sailing. I cross Atlantic sailing. I do races all the time. I sail in Croatia, in the Adriatic. We have a boat. Wow. I love gardening. I love cooking. I don't know. I got many activities. Yeah, and family, of course. I have two kids, two boys. I'm hoping that they will grow happy and healthy. Yes.
That's
not like
awesome.
Me now.
Well, I mean, it's important to do something to get away, because if you spend so much time like in the details and something so complicated, I actually just spoke. We're recording this. I'm not sure exactly when this actually drops, but we're recording this on the 15th of November. And on the 14th, I was at my alma mater and talking with some students who are interested in information technology, cybersecurity, local chapter of AIS. And the idea of the complexity and trying to move away from the complexity, that you can just sometimes you have to watch just how far into the details you get. Just kind of, what is the saying? You see the forest through the trees or something like that. I never get that saying right. So
Yeah, but I know it. Yeah, to abstract. When we built Eramba, I'm dyslexic. When I started to do GRC, I didn't understand anything. Zero. This policy, risk, controls. What is this controls? And this is why I had to build my own way, to explain myself all this. And this is what is Eramba core explanation of how GRC works, a problem and solutions approach. I just couldn't understand it. I'm always very transparent with that topic.
well, I love that, because now that I just had a little light bulb come over my head. That's one of the reasons why Aramba works so well as being simple, is because you're trying to simplify a more complex problem. So I love that.
Yes.
What are your future plans?
We need to do something in US. So historically speaking, our market was 40% US, 40% Europe, and the rest is Middle East and Asia Pacific. And when it comes to US, because of time zone differences, Eastern time, yes, is Eastern and Central to some extent is what most of our community is working on. We have very little Mountain time and Pacific time, and we have the same problems in Australia and New Zealand. We are looking at hiring someone in US, but it's very expensive and it's very difficult to find the right people. We don't know much there. So I'm going in February with my family to US. We're going to be there a month or so. And they will be on holidays, and probably I will be trying to meet you, hopefully, and people around that can help me to connect, yes. So yeah, that's a big plan for Aramba. Aramba also, we hired a lot of people this year. A lot, 5 people.
Well, yeah, I know
it's,
when you
for
said
me,
that you
it's
had,
like,
when you had 10 people, I'm like, okay, the last time I remember it was
yeah,
about
or
half
5.
that. So
Yes.
yeah.
Because I'm so scared to spend money. I'm not a businessman. I'm risk adverse when it comes to financing. So we hired 5 people, and we will have a completely new UI next year. I'm very,
I
very
saw that.
happy for that. I think it's going to give us 5-10 years of having a modern UI in the software. So yes, expansions in these areas and a new UI. If I make half of that, I'm super happy.
That's awesome. Well, if there's anything I can do to help, you just let me know.
I will let you know. Yes.
It's very rare for me to say I'm very happy about a product, but I'm very happy with Aramba. So,
Thank you
Esteban,
very much.
thank you so much for joining us today. I'm glad we finally were able to connect, because I know it's been a couple of times that we've rescheduled for both of our busy schedules, being small business owners. But really appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you, Greg.
And everybody, stay secure.